Okay, take it away, Jennifer. Oh, she's muted. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It's very quiet, but we can
Okay.
hear you.
I was trying something different with my sound and it didn't work.
Oh,
So
that's
hold
much
on.
better.
Is that
That's
better?
much better. Yeah.
Are you good now?
Yes. Perfect. Okay. So we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. If you want to type your name and your library in the text chat. Do you want to read the meeting housekeeping, Jennifer?
Sure. All right. Sorry about that. My husband is in the next room and really loud, so I apologize if you start to hear him. So, all right. So, please make sure your microphone is muted. You should have been automatically muted when you joined the meeting. Video encouraged, but optional. Use the chat window to enter questions. If you prefer to ask your question verbally, unmute and ask to chime in. To turn on closed captioning, click the live transcript button on the Zoom toolbar and click show subtitle. This option may also be in the more menu on the Zoom toolbar. Which reminds me, I meant to do that. I was logged in on a different account when I first got here, so I had to jump out and back on again. And then this meeting will be recorded. It's recording right now. Notes will be taken and the slides will be available. Watch the RSA listserv for an announcement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
As usual, the agenda is on the RSA support site, support.librariesofrsa.org. If you go to events in the toolbar towards the top of the page, committee meetings, database committee. And then our agenda is right here. We'll go ahead and open that up. Okay, so we'll get started with Kendall's update. So take it away, Kendall, when you're ready.
Sure. Good morning. I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing here. The other person's screen was, yes, I want to continue. Assuming I can find the thing I want to share. If I have done this correctly, you should be seeing the support site.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go to the Independence Project, which I just updated this morning. So we have now, as of this morning, 117 signed and returned Illinois intergovernmental agreements with libraries. We've got 83 from publics, 29 from schools. All three academics and both of our specials have signed IGAs. We currently know of 4 now schools that will be departing for sure RSA this year, which is not a surprise. We had figured we would lose between 5 and 10 schools. Just price increases. Schools are very susceptible to price increases, number one, but also number two, this is a chance for them to go, do we really use the system? Should we sign up? eh, you know, and there were some schools were like, maybe you shouldn't sign the IGA because you're really not using the system and we kind of feel bad for charging you that much money. So if you do want to see who has signed the IGAs, there's a handy little link right here. You click on that and it shows the date it was last updated, which was about 5 minutes ago. And here's a list of the publics and here's the non-publics that have signed. So that is all available to you. So where we're at with this, we are currently in the process of hunting down the remainder of the schools. I believe there are 9 schools that we have not heard from one way or another. So we basically we have sent 2 packages, one through delivery, one physically in the mail. We sent another letter in the mail. We have called all these libraries. We have emailed all of the school libraries, and we are now to the point where we are calling them weekly. and working our way through to just try and get an answer and explain the importance of what we're trying to do here, and the fact that if they don't sign the agreement when they come back in the fall and they try and log into workflows, nothing will happen because they will not be able to access workflows. Their RSA CAT page will be gone, all of those things. Now, are we going to delete anything out of the system? No, no, we are not, because it inevitably happens. Well, it happened last year. We had a school that was considering pulling out last year. And that was the last thing we heard in May before they left was, we don't know if we're pulling out or not. And then in the fall, Rails got a question asking what software they were supposed to use to check in the blue bins. Um, and they're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, who are you? And oh, let's send you to RSA. And they did not realize that workflows was what RSA provided, not what Rails provided. So this is, in some cases, the battle that we fight, and that is mostly just due to staff turnover in schools. It's very difficult. As far as publics go, we only have one public right now that we know was at least calling around for pricing for things. Everybody else is like, yeah, we're going to sign it. It just hasn't come up on the board. Or yes, we did sign it and we've mailed it to you, but we haven't received it yet. In which case, if it's been longer than a week or two, now we're like, okay, well, maybe you might want to sign another one and send it to us. So we're in pretty good shape as far as all of that goes. For those of you who are basic online libraries, you will see additional toolbars appearing in your workflows in late June or early July as part of everybody has access to everything in RSA. Whether or not you want to use it is a whole nother story. But you will have everybody in RSA as of the 1st of July is at the exact same membership level. Everybody has access to everything. So access might mean training, right? So if you want access to do item group editor, well, you have to go through item group editor training and have your account set up to do that. So there are some things that are gated behind training requirements. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so that is the independence update. I do have a couple of other real just quick things to tell you. Number one, we have been having some issues in RSA CAT with items being cataloged and then not appearing in the catalog. And that is because on the back end, the synchronization between our Symfony server and the catalog, which are the Symfony server lives in one place, the catalog lives in another place. It is not a direct connection between those two. So what happens is once a day, early in the morning, we do an entire database extract and we send it to the catalog in the sky. And then every 2 hours from like 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., we do what we call delta. So we look at the database, how it looked 2 hours ago, and anything that's changed in the last 2 hours, we send that to the catalog. So depending on when you catalog something, it could be reflected in 2 hours, or it could be reflected in 4 hours if you just missed the window of that delta. But what has been happening is between that synchronization cycle plus the ERC synchronization cycles, which are Overdrive, Hoopla, and eRead Illinois, and there are literally hundreds of those individual synchronizations going on. For example, every library that has an Advantage Overdrive account has their own sync. Every library in RSA has their own ERC sync. Every library with Hoopla has a separate sync. Hoopla has multiple millions of items that need to be transferred back and forth. And so what had happened is that there's just so much stuff on this that it has slowed down the indexing and writing to the logs. And that has been causing intermittent errors, but those intermittent errors have been getting worse and worse and worse. And we don't get automatic notification. We have to remember to go in and look at the status of these things to know if they failed or not. Or, you call and say, hey, we cataloged a thing yesterday and it's not in the catalog today. And then we go, uh-oh. And then we go and look at the notice. So the fix is, it is working today. Everything's up and running. Everything should be synced, or at least it was as of an hour ago. On Monday at 3 a.m., so Monday morning when you're all asleep, Circe Dynamics is going to take our entire RSA catalog and move it to a different server. That will be our own server. It won't be shared with anybody else. They're going to do that for several other large customers that are experiencing the same type of things. And basically that just gives us more resources, and there's nothing in the background that should be conflicting. And they're hoping that that will fix the problem moving forward. So I haven't typed the email up yet, but there'll be an email going out to the listserv today that talks about, hey, you know, if you have a patron complain that it from between 3 and 4 o'clock a.m. Monday morning, they couldn't get to RSA Cat, that's why. Speaking of listservs, since I mentioned it, get in touch, RSA email group sign up. You can click on that and you can sign up for our new groups. As you can see, there are many of them. Particularly for you guys, there's the cataloging one, there's the technical services one, there's a cataloging policies and standards one. And this is, again, to help you all just discuss everything between your own selves. And then if you need to rope in RSA staff, we'll be monitoring those as well. If you get to a point where you're like, ooh, we should have a meeting about something important, then all that gets worked out on the listserv, and then a meeting gets scheduled, and boom, then we can have a meeting. So there is that. And then one other thing, how many of you, oh, I can't see all of you, so a show of hands won't do me any good. Many of you have logins for BCA. And a good reason, starting very shortly in the future, to have a login to BCA is that I have finally figured out how to get this interactive collection browser working the way I want it to. And as you saw, you just click on a link and it opens right up. Well, you have to have an RSA or a BCA login, but that's simple enough to get in your library. And we are still testing this. You'll notice this is labeled as a demo, but it works pretty well. So basically what you have here right now is 1 million titles, 4 million items. That's basically our entire catalog because we've got all the libraries checked right now. Here under the library one, you'll see it says all. You've got ways that you can eliminate what's being shown with item types, item collections, home locations, item status. So if you want to just see things that are in mending, you could. Catalog format, last checkout or check-in date, last checkout date, item price, item created date. What else is in here? Publication year. And then this nice list here that lists all of the items that meet the criteria. And right now the criteria is everything in our system. But if we said, well, I just care about what's in the RSA collection, which is really only about 480 items, I would just change the library to RSA's collection. Now I can see we have 441 titles, 483 items, and maybe I only care about books. So I'm just going to select books. And as you can see, all of these things now change to reflect the data that I'm showing. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this will help you guys figure out things in your collection, A, that are cataloged incorrectly. For instance, as soon as I picked my library, the item types displayed in the item type list limit to just my library. And if there is something that's miscatalogued in an item type that you don't use now or no longer use, it's going to have a little thing here. And you're like, oh, we don't, there's my cursor. We don't actually have any 3-hour items. Why is it showing 3 hour? Well, you could click and say, well, oh, I have one 3-hour item. Oh, that's what it is. It's a testing item. So that's okay, right? And the thing that I'm excited about is that it now finally works much quicker. I have to clear all of this out. Oh, there we go. Then it used to. Broke it, one of the two. As I said, it's a demo. Anyway, This is what we're working on now. We had started working on this last year, and we were having a lot of problems with the database in the background because it is literally a massive, huge database in the background, and we just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And so I asked some questions and got a little bit of help, and now it works better. So even Alpha Park, which has quite a lot of items, 92,000 items are returned here. You know, if I just want to see their Blu-ray 3Ds, whoops, I just eliminated their Blu-ray 3Ds. I want to only see their Blu-ray 3Ds. They only have 12 of those, right? But that's a nice, easy way to get to it. And then you can go over here to the list. You will have to exclude. So I can export that as an Excel or a PDF, right? So let's say I've used this to, I could use this to make a weeding list, right? Anything that hasn't checked out since, I don't know, 2020. Here's a weeding list I can just give to somebody. Oh, well, 3 of them are lost, assume, imagine that, right? But here's a weeding list I could just export into Excel or PDF and say, go grab these things off the shelf, right? So the idea behind this is, this would be a direct link off our website. You don't have to navigate through the entire BCA structure. This is just a link. You click the link, it opens one report and only one report. You log in with your BCA thing, the report launches, you play with the filters to see the listing that you want, and boom, there's your data. So that is my time. I yield the floor
Hey,
back.
Kendall, there was a question from Ann at Galesburg.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah, asking if this is a more user-friendly Blue Cloud interface.
This is the quote unquote future of Blue Cloud. This is a dashboard which was renamed several years ago to Dossier, which last year was renamed back to Dashboard. This is where MicroStrategy, who makes the back end for Blue Cloud Analytics, this is what they want everybody to go to, are these types of reports versus the more Excel looking, you know, pick all your filters, run your thing, you have a report, and then, but it's a static report. These dashboards are all basically live reports. And it's nice for those of you who've been around for a million years and remember Director Station. This is something I've been trying to get to work, because this is how Director Station, much slower and much less conveniently, but you could do these same types of things in Director Station a million years ago. But that product, the company that made that product, went out of business. So yes, this is the new look, but these reports take, it's a completely different workflow and brain thinking method to make a report that has all of the data that you might possibly want to look at in an interactive report versus just a standard list of, here's all my Blue Cloud, or here's all my Blu-ray 3Ds just as a list, right? So it's a completely different thought process. So I do hope in time to roll out more of these, but this is the one that I've been the most focused on, because this is the one that has the most applicable use, not only to catalogers, but to people doing collection development and people looking, you know, oh, my library doesn't have a lot of Westerns, but I know the library down the road has a lot of Westerns. Let me just go over and look at their Westerns collection, right? You could just use this to pull it all right up. So.
Any other questions for Kendall? Okay, thank you, Kendall. Let me share my screen again. Okay, next we have Dr. Pamela Thomas with the Cataloging Maintenance Center update.
Morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My lovely snotty voice. I know, it's fun. Hang on, let me pull up my Word document because, you know, there's so much. Not really. So our final FY 2024 online with the CMC was last Thursday, Getting Serious About Series. So if you missed the live webinar, the recording can be found on our webpage. We are almost finished with creating our FY 2025 online with the CMC webinars. So hopefully I'll be adding those to L2 within the next week or so. So check back there, and those will be from August of this year through May of next year, because that's how we roll. Our upcoming Moodle courses, subject analysis starts on Monday, May 20th. You can still register. I opened that back up so you could register through, I think, the end of today. I'll put the link in the chat for that. I think there are still 7 seats available. So that runs May 20th through June 30th. And then I'm teaching that one. And then Eric will be teaching cataloging basics July 8th through August 18th. There's still seats available for that. And then I'll be teaching cataloging 3D objects, kits, and realia September 9th through October 6th. And then we've got a lot more Moodle classes. You can find those either on our webpage or in L2. And we are always open to suggestions for online with the CMC webinars or Moodle classes. So if you could just email us at cmc@illinoisheartland.org, we would be glad to hear from you. We have been working diligently on the RSA backlog cleanup project. And since we started last October, we have enhanced or originally cataloged and merged 1,671 books, scores, spoken sound, musical sound, and videos. And we have sent 607 emails notifying libraries. And I see that some of you are in here because I know I've sent some of you emails about our actions that we've taken. I'm sure Nancy's report mentions this too, but I'm working with Nancy George and Jennifer Baugh, the share manager for Bibliographic Services, on the cataloging mentorship program. It has a new name now. It's called iCamp with a lowercase I, Illinois Cataloging Mentorship Program. We've had several committee meetings, and we're working on a website, documents, and creating applications for people to join the program. And we hope to get that up and running soon. So I think that's all that I have, unless if anybody has any questions. And I put the link to the subject analysis class if you want to. You still have time to register. It's going to be fun.
Thank you, Pam. That's great progress on our backlog. We really appreciate the help.
You are welcome, and it's fun. I like database cleanup. I'm weird.
There's plenty there, that's for sure.
That's okay.
It's never ending.
That's all right. You and Prairie Cat can get into a our wrestling match over who's got more, or Alma. I think Alma Carly wins. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pam, for joining us. What is next? Okay, Nancy's unable to join us today, so we will have Rhonda read the update.
Hey everyone. I have several links and I will share them in the chat after I finish. The cataloging training, we have received numerous requests for Mark 21 standard class. In response, we'll be offering a 6-week training course on Mark through a Moodle developed site in late summer, August 26th. It's on L2 and I will share that link later. It's not published yet. The registration starts on June 3rd and it ends on August 19th. In the fall, we will be offering supplementary training opportunities in specialized topics, either cataloging children's materials or cataloging video games. In late winter, we also will be offering a I can't even speak. Moodle course on classification basics, understanding Dewey Decimal classification, and Web Dewey. All training will be listed on L2. Rails continues to develop new courses and revise the content of existing courses. Please reach out to Nancy George if you have suggestions for cataloging courses you would like to have Rails offer. Here's the L2 registration link for the training. that I mentioned. And here's Nancy's email address. All right, now the membership program for a mentorship program for cataloging professionals of Illinois. The new name is Illinois Cataloging Mentorship Program, ICAMP. I like that. We are thrilled to share an update on the collaborative effort between RALS and IHLS to establish a mentoring program for cataloging professionals in Illinois. I am pleased to inform you that we have assembled a committee comprising of 14 members from various Illinois libraries who are actively involved in shaping this initiative. We renamed the program to Illinois Cataloging Mentorship Program. We are aiming to launch the program in September 2024 and will keep you updated on its progress and details. Updates on the program will be shared through RALS, IHLS, e-news, and various RALS listservs. Please stay tuned for more information. The World Language Cataloging Services. We're pleased to announce that our World Language Cataloging Services excelled last quarter, cataloging 339 diverse titles from various Illinois libraries. This effort enhances resource management and accessibility. Libraries can submit unlimited items, and we're eager to assist with your cataloging needs. Send your items our way to improve collection accessibility. Thank you for your continued partnership, and we look forward to supporting your cataloging needs. The World Language Cataloging Services Program details can be found at this website. And as part of their commitment to exceptional service, we surveyed Illinois libraries to evaluate our world cataloging services. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with high satisfaction reported in service quality. While many libraries appreciate the program, some are not yet prepared to engage with it. Most users submitted items for original cataloging, with fewer opting for copy cataloging. The survey indicates strong demand and readiness for the services expansion, with universal satisfaction and support for its continued growth. We were thankful to the RSA members for their contributions to the survey. Please reach out to Nancy if you have any questions regarding cataloging services from RALS. She would be happy to help you. Thank you. Any questions? Not that I can really answer them, but you can send them to Nancy and she will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, what is next on our agenda, Jennifer?
Next, we'll have Anthony talk about RSA operations.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So the first thing I wanted to mention is the operations manual that I've been working on for several months now, along with a group of, I think, 8 or 9 volunteers, some of whom are in this meeting right now. I noticed Ronnie and Laurie and Bob, are all on the operations manual working group. We've been meeting monthly for the last several months to develop what we're calling an operations manual. The idea of this document is that it's going to be kind of a one-stop jumping off point for basically how to survive a day at an RSA library. It's aimed at frontline staff, so it doesn't go deep into the woods on certain things, but it provides lots of links to so that you can explore more deeply various topics. But the idea is that it's supposed to provide a sort of basic starting point. It provides very basic information, including one of the questions we're asked most often: what's the difference between Rails and RSA? It tries to provide definitions of things like words like consortium and LSAP and library system. And then it provides information on sort of basic circulation functions and basic cataloging functions. The idea right now, the plan right now, is to have what I'm calling a public beta version ready for early in July. It'll be available at the support website for download, and then the group, the working group, and I will look at suggestions. The whole idea of it being kind of a public beta version is so that we get suggestions for improvements, recommendations for information to include that maybe we missed, and then an updated version, the sort of first proper release, would be available within a couple of months after that. That's hopefully the time frame. We have a meeting next week on Thursday. It's our 5th of these monthly meetings, and they've been very productive. I'm really grateful to the group for all the work and suggestions and input and copy editing that we've that we've got. So it's been a very fruitful project, and I'm hoping it'll be a very useful product when it's finished. The other main thing I wanted to talk about today is, in case you haven't seen it yet, the documentation index that I've been working on now for about, goodness, 5 months. I'm just going to put the direct link in the chat. And then, if you don't mind, Erica, I'm going to try and share my screen.
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully, you should be seeing the support website.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so the other way to get to the documentation index is from the main page. If you go to this drop-down tab here called Handbooks, and then scroll down to Documentation Index, click there. And this is our latest version of the Documentation Index, dated May 10th. I'm working on the next revision as we speak. The idea of this document is that it provides a complete, and right now, 21-page list of all of the documentation that RSA staff have written. It includes the top-level policies and standards and procedures, and then it also includes the guides and the cheat sheets, of which there are, I think, 85 or something like that of each. This version, it also includes a column which links out to videos that we have out on YouTube, and it also has links out to parameters, and then provides the last updated or reviewed date so that you can see typically how old the document is. We're actively working on updating documents as we go. We're trying to prioritize some of the oldest ones and some of the ones where we don't know how old they are, and just checking quite often, even though a document might be, say, 8 years old, the information is still accurate because workflows hasn't changed in that aspect. But we are trying to review them. And we've had, I think, since the beginning of April, we've updated 16 documents so far, or I think it's 9 updates and 7 brand new documents have been created since April. This index will continue to be updated and new versions made live when they're ready. The next version, actually, this videos column will be changed to kind of an other, and it will include not just videos, but also links to forms like the Jot form that Kendall showed you earlier for signing up for email lists, so that those forms are all readily available in one place. And those dossiers or dashboards that Kendall showed you one of, those would also be included, so that it would hopefully it'll be kind of a one-stop shop for if you've got a question, you hopefully can find a document to answer it. All of these, you can see they kind of highlight as I scroll over them. This is a link, so it will take you directly to the document in question, so that you can download it. You can also download the PDF so that you've got it on your desktop, but just be aware that it's going to get changed from time to time as new versions get published. I think that's everything I had. Does anyone have any questions about either the operations manual or the documentation index?
Did you want to briefly mention the parameter parties? If you don't, that's okay.
Oh, no,
but-
I'm happy to mention the parameters parties. The operations department is starting work on something we're calling parameters parties plus. The word party is probably the most misleading word we could have chosen, because it's a very long way from being a party. But we will be reaching out over the next several months to all 96 of our public library members, and I was going to say giving them the opportunity to have one of these parameters parties with us, but Kendall has actually said that they are going to be mandatory. So giving you the opportunity to sign up for a mandatory appointment is what we're going to be doing. The purpose of this is we've generated a questionnaire with some 50 or so questions about how, for example, your circulation works in your library, how your holds map is supposed to work in your library, whether you're fine free, who your cataloging point of contact would be, lots and lots of questions, checking your hours so we can make sure that your opening hours are correct in RSA CAT. What's become clear to us is that there is a gap between what many of our member libraries do in practice and what we think they do, or what is established in workflows parameters. And we need to try and close that gap. A good example of where that has shown itself is that we have had 18 of our libraries go fine free without telling us. And so they were doing things like fine-free discharges, or they were forgiving fines manually, which obviously is something that's not necessary, because if we set things up correctly in workflows parameters, you don't need to do that anymore. And so that was kind of the impetus for us putting together this program. So over the next couple of months, the operations team are going to be doing a bunch of research so that they are prepared for these meetings. We estimate that each of these kind of parties, interviews, takes about 2 hours for a staff member to prepare for. And so I wanted to give them a good couple of months head start so they could do the preparatory research before we start setting the appointments. And then in July, or towards the end of June, beginning of July, we will invite the 20 public libraries in our new Eastern region to sign up for appointments. They'll be done over Zoom. We could possibly do them in person if that's convenient to both sides. But they will probably mostly be done over Zoom, and we'll be just going through and checking the various questions in this questionnaire, and then a month later in August, we'll move on to the southern region where there are 21 libraries, and so on. We hope we can wrap up sometime around Thanksgiving. But this is a big project, and we've gone into it with the idea that, you know, deadlines might slip because we're dealing with so much work and 96 different institutions that we've got to try and coordinate. So yeah, thank you, Erica. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that again.
Sure. Thank you for joining us. Does anyone have
Absolutely.
any questions for Anthony? Operations is staying very busy. Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Let's see, Jennifer, what is next on our agenda?
Looks like next we'll have Erica talking about new email groups for cataloging staff.
I'll touch on this lightly since Kendall stole my thunder a little bit. So like you mentioned, there's lots of new email groups on various topics. They're a good place for you to share, but remember they're not a replacement for the help desk. So if you have a question for us, please continue to email help@rsanfp.org. When these emails come into your inbox, they'll use the libraries of rsa.simplelist.com email domain. Kendall showed you where to sign up for them, so we'll jump over that. As he mentioned, there's a technical services, cataloging policies and standards groups. We'll also sign you up for the RSA information, which replaces our current listserv, and then also outages and maintenance. There is a PDF that lists all of the groups, so I've linked it here in the slides. The good thing about these email groups is that they all have an archive. So to access the archives, I've put the link in the slides, and basically you just enter the email with which you're subscribed, and then you'll have access to the messages that have been posted to that group. Staff will monitor the conversation in the groups and will chime in if necessary, but we're trying to make the discussion more among the members. If you subscribe to a list and find that it's unhelpful, unsubscribing is pretty easy. At the bottom of each email from the group, there's an unsubscribe link. And you can also just email help@rsanfp.org and provide your email address and the group names. And then most likely Anthony, since he's the mastermind behind the subscriptions with these groups, he'll unsubscribe you once he sees your message come in. I think, yeah, okay, I think that was it for the groups. Does anyone have any questions? Oops, I was going to show you the list of the groups. Yeah, so they're all listed here, but they're also on that sign up form that Kendall showed you on the support site. So in Get in Touch and the email groups sign up. So they're all listed down here. Okay, we will push ahead. What's next on our agenda?
There it is. So next we'll talk about progress since the last database committee meeting. We'll start with Lisa to talk about RSA upgrade of brief records to OCLC records.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so RSA progress for upgrading brief records to OCLC records. sorry, I'm just going to read off the slide because there's really no way to jazz this up beyond the information that's here. So, so far, like the number of brief records that have been upgraded since our last database committee meeting totals 1,098. I think Eric had like just reran that, so that's a pretty like super accurate number. So yay for all of that, and thank you all for creating those brief records and letting us know your items need some TLC. So we continue to work through a system-wide report of brief records with email addresses in their 592 fields. And beautifying those brief records and overlaying them with full level OCLC records. We are working through that report oldest to newest based on brief record creation date. So right now we are currently upgrading brief records that have been entered in March of 2023. And do remember that, you know, as we find these brief records, we do send an email out to establish a line of communication. Do reply to us from that email if you don't want to send the item. We'll cancel the hold and delete the 592 field on the brief record. That way it doesn't like pop up again on that report, so we don't like bother you again about it. So yeah, just remember to shoot us a message if you don't want to send it.
Okay, what is next?
We'll stick with Lisa about the cataloging maintenance center's work on the backlog.
Yeah, you guys don't get to get rid of me that quickly. So yeah, so the cataloging maintenance center progress. Pam kind of already touched on this a little bit. The CMC has been amazing. They continue to upgrade Braille and coding level 8 and AM records that were sitting in our backlog, all upgrading them to full level OCLC records. For a further breakdown of what they've been doing, 722 encoding level 8 requests have been processed since the February 27th database meeting. There are 670 open encoding level 8 requests remaining. And the age of the oldest open encoding level 8 request is from January 29th of 2019. So since the February 27th database meeting, 100 encoding level M and Braille requests have been processed by the CMC. Right now, there are still 1,157 open encoding level M requests remaining. So they're like plugging along over there. And the oldest open encoding level M request date is from April 26th of 2017. So yay for the CMC.
Woohoo! We do appreciate their help. They have been deep in the backlog. And thank you too if they've reached out to you via email to ask you to send them an item. Thank you for doing that because some of the images that they're trying to work with, either they disappeared into the ether or maybe the images are unclear. So thank you too for your help as they work through this backlog for us. Okay, what is next on the agenda?
Next is the 2024 annual cataloging theme with Erica.
Okay, remember at our last meeting, we launched our Connecting with Catalogers theme. Excuse me, I've got a frog. So the first part of that theme involves reworking the basic workflows cataloging workshop and potentially the BibLoad workshop to encourage more members to participate. This is in progress with the basic workflows cataloging workshop. Probably before the BibLoad workshop, we look at that. Probably item group editor training will launch later this year. So I didn't mention the BibLoad workshop specifically in what we're working on right now. Watch the listserv for more details in the coming months. The next part of the theme involved the technical services membership group and email list. We launched those, I think, with users group last week. So the technical services email list, along with cataloging and cataloging policies and standards, as we talked about a couple minutes ago, those are being launched at users group and also at this meeting today. You likely received an email from me a couple weeks ago because Anthony had the good idea of signing you up if you'd attended the past couple database meetings. So you may have gotten an email saying that you were being subscribed to the cataloging policies and standards email list. Remember, this is optional. So if you don't want to be on the list, just remember to unsubscribe. Go to the next slide here. We're calling the replacement for these meetings, we're going to call it the RSA cataloging chat. I have a slide later in the meeting where we'll get into more details about what the cataloging chat will look like, but it will primarily be information sharing, much like these meetings are. Targeting 3 or 4 per year. I do have the first one scheduled for late September, the last Friday morning. Registration's available. It's posted on L2. So feel free if you want to go ahead and save the date on your calendar. We'll also share that date on the listserv when we announce that the notes and the recording are ready for this meeting. The final piece of the theme involved cataloging site visits. We launched these last fall and the team has been doing an amazing job. They've been going very well. Remember, you can request a visit by going to our support site. And up at the top of the screen, there's an option to get in touch. And then there's a visit request. So if you're interested in hosting us for a visit, learning lots of tidbits about cataloging, getting questions answered, you can fill out the form here and select cataloging. We'll also be reaching out to libraries if we haven't connected with you lately, just to see if you might be interested in hosting us so we can reestablish that connection. We visited several libraries since the last database meeting. The team has been to Air, El Paso, Forest, John Mosser, Lexington, Quincy, Rushville, Salem, and the Village of Avon libraries. So they have been busy on the road. Enjoying the visits. Thank you for hosting us. We're hoping to see more of you in the coming months. Any questions about the theme? Okay, what is next on our agenda?
Next, we'll move into workflows cataloging. Start with Rhonda to talk about library binding ISBNs on brief records.
Hello, everyone. Want to talk about library bindings on ISBN, binding ISBNs on brief records. We ask that when you come across a library binding item, it usually has the ISBN on the Verso page is not the same as the ISBN on the back of the book. It's usually for like Fitzgerald, Turtle Bound, Follett Bound, Turtleback, sorry. I have a frog, sorry. Anyway, when you come across these items, we ask that you enter the ISBN for the paperback or the hardcover version of the book into the 020 field and the title control number fields on the brief record. The paperback or hardcover ISBN is found inside the book on the title page Verso and not necessarily the back cover, as you can see on the slides. After you create the brief record, email help@rsanfp.org to ask RSA to add the library binding ISBN to the record. The library binding ISBN is usually found on the book's back cover. Adding the library binding ISBN helps other libraries identify this record as a match for their item, avoiding the creation of duplicate brief records. Instructions on how to handle library binding ISBNs on brief records are found on page 12 of the guide, How to Create a Brief Record, which can be found on our site. Do you need me to show that, Erica, where it's at, or?
Sure, that'd be helpful.
Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, everyone should be seeing the support sites.
Yes.
So in order to find how to create a brief record cheat sheet, you can go to the handbook and cataloging handbook. And right here on the side, we have brief records. And here's the guide how to create a brief record. And you can download the guide. And as you can see, I'm gonna go to page 12. And as you can see, here's a guide on how to do that. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Excellent. Thank you, Rhonda. I think we'll do a couple more topics and then we'll take our break since we've been at it almost an hour. So hang in there. We'll do a couple more topics and then and then we'll take a 5-minute break. So what is next on our agenda, Jennifer?
I'll stick with Rhonda for recently created cataloging parameters.
Thank you. As you can see, we've created some new home locations for since the last database meeting. I found the seed library location to be kind of neat. There's a lot of libraries creating seed libraries, and I've just found that to be really interesting. And at the end, I will show you where all the parameters can be found. The most recent item type that we created was a CD book special for books on CD that are special. And there were no item category 1, 2, or 3s created. We had a couple item category 4s created, one of which was local illustrator, because we had local author, but nothing for local illustrator. So, and item category, we had one item category 5, and that was local illustrator as well. Now, share my screen so you can see where you can find your parameters on the website. There's several different ways you can get to it, but you can go to topics and parameters. And then you click on cataloging parameters. And you can see all the parameters. They're updated once a month, I believe, beginning of the month or so after they've been updated. Once we create them. It says updated the first week of each month.
I do update the item cat 4 and 5 lists as I make codes, mostly so I don't forget to update the complete list. So the 4 and 5 lists do get updated as often as you make suggestions for codes. But Rhonda's correct. The other lists we update within the first week of each month. Okay, I think what we'll do, we're right before 10:30. So let's go ahead and take our break. So I'll set a timer for 5 minutes and then we'll reconvene after that and we'll continue on with our workflows.
Don't forget to
topics.
pause the recording.
Oh, thank you. Okay, looks like the recording has resumed. What is up next on our agenda?
We're going to go to Erin about item categories 6 through 10. Erica, did you want to share your screen again?
Oh, yes. That would have been helpful to show during the break. Sorry about that. Oh, you could tell it's Friday. All right. You able to see the screen okay now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Item category 6 through 10. Take it away, Erin.
Okay. Item categories 6 through 10 were launched in workflows with the upgrade to version 4.1.0.01367 in late March. Currently, RSA does not plan to use items CAT 6 through 10. They may be used in the future for special projects. When you catalog a new item in workflows, item CAT 6 through 10 should automatically default to using undefined. Please contact the help desk if you notice item CAT 6 through 10 are blank when you are cataloging new items. RSA will also be monitoring newly cataloged items for blank item CAT 6 through 10. Last week, RSA worked with Cersei Dynex to batch edit all existing items with blank item CAT 6 to 10 to undefined. There's no need to include item CAT 6 through 10 in the 949 tag on the OCLC record loaded into workflows. OCLC records loaded into workflows will automatically use undefined for item CAT 6 through 10.
Woohoo, that's a
Yeah.
that is a great victory because I was afraid we would have to add several new subfields to 949 tags for codes that we're not even using. So luckily we don't have to do that. I will say, since we did the batch edit with Cersei Dynex last Friday, we have several hundred items that are being created with these as blank still. So I'm not sure what the issue is. So if you happen to see that as you're putting in items on your end, please let us know. But my understanding was Kendall had pushed out the settings for workflows so that it would default to undefined. Excuse me. So I'm not too sure why some of them are going to blank. So if you notice it, please let us know so we can try to look further into it. Okay, any questions about the item CAT 6 through 10?
There's one from Anne in the chat.
If they are blank. Sometimes it affects the ability of the item to show up on a report. Luckily, we're not using item CAT 6 through 10, so we're not running reports based on those values. But if an item was blank and you were trying to run an item CAT 6 through 10 report, it wouldn't show on the report since it has no value. Mostly, we're just trying to make sure they're undefined so that if we do start to use them at some point, they're properly configured rather than leaving them as blank. That's a good question. Is there anything else about the item CAT 6 through 10? Okay, what is next on the agenda?
A reminder about pre-release items. We're sticking with Erin.
Okay, this is a reminder that a pre-release item can be cataloged in workflows on a brief or OCLC record and start accumulating holds, but please do not check it out to a patron before the official release date. As soon as the pre-release item is cataloged, be sure to check it out to an internal technical services user or an on-order user until the release date. Please do not check out pre-release items to individual cataloger accounts. On the release date, the item can be discharged from the tech services or on-order user and then start filling holds and checking out. RSA will reach out if we learn your library is checking out pre-release items before their official release date.
Any questions about that? This doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does pop up. We get a report from a library that they're seeing an item check out before it's officially released. So we thought a reminder would be a good idea. If there aren't any questions about that, let's push ahead. What's next on our agenda?
Next, we'll talk about discard and last copies on records, says Jennifer.
Some good news here.
Sorry, I could not unmute. Oh, good morning. Yes, it is good news. It's kind of gone back and forth. RSA recently learned that the last copies on records can be removed from workflows during the discard process unless one of the following conditions is true. The item is in transit, the title is under serial control, the title has an open order, which, to be honest, I'm not even sure what that is, Erica. what the open order is. Is that, you mean an on order or?
The open order, Quincy Public Library uses, I think it's either under the selection module or the acquisitions module. It's probably acquisitions, but there's a way that they do their acquisitions at Quincy's where it can have, the order can be left open-ended.
Oh.
Even once the item is received, and that can cause a problem with the record as a whole. Because even if it's not Quincy trying to remove their item, it can affect the ability of another library to remove their item since the open order applies at the bib record level. It's kind of convoluted. It doesn't happen too often, luckily, but it is one of those conditions where it does prevent the discard. We actually, not to go too far off track, but Cersei Dynex gave us a report. Anthony and I were actually talking about it, of open orders at the Quincy Public Library that are several years old. So we're thinking we may try to work with them at some point to try and close the open orders so that the discards can run smoothly, not just for them, but for anybody else too that's trying to discard their item on that record.
Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Yeah, sorry to interrupt what I, okay. Next, and the item is on hold. Items that fail to discard due to one of the above conditions are shadowed in the RSA CAT, preventing patrons from seeing them and placing holds. Please contact the RSA Help Desk if you're interested in a report of your library's items that fail to be discarded. Any questions? Like I said, I think it has gone kind of back and forth. We thought this would happen and then not, and now no last copies can be removed unless of these situations.
Luckily, we didn't revise the discard procedure yet on our support site. Luckily, we didn't revise it when we thought all last copies could not be discarded. So the discard procedure does not have any incorrect information in it, fortunately. Okay, what is next on the agenda?
Next, we'll stick with Jennifer to talk about erased fixed fields on workflows records.
Okay.
Please. Sorry to interrupt just before you continue. So Anthony just popped into the chat that he just wanted to supply a quick update on the documentation index. A new version which lists 8 forms, which you can use to make various kinds of requests of RSA, will be available later today. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Yay. Okay,
Excellent.
Thanks for the update. Okay, erase fixed fields on workflows records. Please email the help desk if you encounter records and workflows where most of the fixed field values have been erased, appearing as pipes. And you can see an example there that Erica has shared. In your email, mention erased fixed fields and the record's OCLC title control number found in the 001 field on the bibliographic tab. RSA will re-import the record into workflows so the fixed fields correctly populate. This issue most likely stems from applying constant data, the 949 tag, incorrectly in the OCLC record manager. And fixed field values are important for searching and display in both workflows and the RSA CAT. So basically, if you happen to come across a record that has the fixed fields looking like this, please contact the help desk.
One thing I'll mention too, I just thought of it, it's not on the slide, but we will be starting on our end cleanup of these records. We do have a way we can run a report of them. So I think Rhonda, it will be it will be one of Rhonda's projects to start chipping away at these. We have thousands of them, and sometimes the issue pops up more recently due to the OCLC record manager and how that constant data can be applied in there. But a lot of them are older that have the erased fixed fields. So I have a problem, or excuse me, I have a feeling this has been an ongoing problem for some time that we hadn't really thought of to look for until we started to get recent reports of records like this. So thank you if you've reported this to us, because it's unearthed a bigger problem that we need to be chipping away at so that we can ensure we have the correct values, especially the date, because the date in the fixed field, it controls in the workflow search results. It pulls the date into the search results in there. Let me just do a quick search here. Yeah, so this date here, it pulls from the fixed field. And then I think one of the facets in the RSA CAT, when you can limit down your results using those checkboxes on the left side of the RSA CAT, I think those might use fixed field data as well for some of the limiters. So having the values correctly populated is important. And like I said, it's something that we'll try to chip away at as we can, getting these fixed. Okay, what is next on the agenda?
Next, a follow-up on deletion of items with bills. Erica.
Okay. This one, remember, came up during our last meeting. Several of you had mentioned that you're having trouble deleting items with bills without having to first manually create the bill on the user account and then discharge the items so that workflow thinks it's available to delete or to check out to discard. We did have some examples shared with us after the meeting, and all of them were assigned the lost assumed current location. And so we looked into it further with Cersei Dynex because the lost assumed location, those items are difficult to get rid of from the database. We learned that there is a long overdue report that can be run for these lost assumed items. How it works is the lost assumed item has to be overdue for at least 180 days, and then it discharges it to take it out of lost assumed. It makes a bill on the user record, and then it moves the item to discard so it can be removed. There's a couple of major problems with this report, though, and at this point we decided we're not going to be implementing it. The first problem is when the long overdue report makes the bill on the user record, it doesn't include the title or the item ID on the bill tab. When you're looking at the user record, you have to go to a different tab, the extended information tab, to see the title and the item ID, which is counterintuitive. I don't know if everybody would remember to look on a different tab or if you would even know to look there. So that's the first problem with it. The second problem, when it creates the bill on the user record, it uses the current date as the billing date rather than keeping the original billing date. So that means there's a newly created bill with the current date. Workflows will see there's a new bill and notify the patron. But when the patron's notified, remember there's no title or item ID. So the patron's going to get a billing notice just with a price on it. And they're going to think, well, what's this for? It doesn't even tell me what item this is. So this will cause a lot of confusion and upset for patrons, probably staff too, as you're trying to figure out what is going on. So the two problems here, like I said, we just don't feel comfortable implementing this report. We think, like I mentioned, it would cause a lot of trouble both for you and for the patron. So for now, please continue to create the bill manually, discharge the item, and then either delete or check it out. Cersei Dynex did mention that you can customize that long overdue report, but I'm not too sure what that means. But I'd like to think if we revisited it with Cersei Dynex, maybe there's a way we could have the long overdue report behave a little bit differently, but I don't want to guarantee that as something that we'll definitely do. I just wanted to assure the group we did look into it, but unfortunately there's just not a better way right now. Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
So Sarah Newman wrote that they used the long overdue procedure, and that they put the title and item ID in the note field on the billing patron.
Okay, that's a good suggestion because the note field is visible. Okay, anything else about this? Okay, what is next on the agenda?
Next is revised cataloging documentation with Rhonda.
Hi again, everyone. We've had a few updated documents. One of them is the cataloging at a glance cheat sheet. It's now available and updated with additional basic workflows cataloging workshops. This cheat sheet also includes information about cataloging site visits, workflows cataloger accounts, how-to cataloging refreshers, CMC and Rails cataloging services, and RSA cataloging events. The other documentation that we've updated is the database maintenance report. This cheat sheet lists several reports that RSA cataloging department can run to help libraries with database maintenance projects. Please submit a report request if you are interested in any of these reports. Is that all the documentation? Thank you for putting those links in the chat.
Yes, thank you. Okay, what is next on our agenda?
Next, we'll talk about upcoming basic workflows cataloging workshops. Erin.
Okay, thank you. Our upcoming basic workflows cataloging workshops. There's one in the end of June, the 25th through the 27th at 9:30 to noon. The one in July is from the 23rd to the 25th, and that's in the afternoon from 1:30 to 4. In August, we have August 20th through 22nd in the morning from 9:30 to noon. And they are listed on the cataloging at a glance cheat sheet, or you can also find them on the L2 calendar where you can also register for these workshops. Additional basic workflows cataloging workshops will be scheduled in 2024, posted on L2 and announced on the RSA listserv.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, what is next?
Next, we'll move on to OCLC cataloging, starting with the 758 field on OCLC records with Lisa.
All right, so the 758 field on OCLC records. So the 758 field contains a unique identifier for a resource, and it could either be the resource that is described in the record itself or for a related resource. So some of you might recall that last December, OCLC began adding WorldCat entities, URIs, so those are uniform resource identifiers for persons, places, and events to records in the 100, 600, 647, 651, and 700 fields. So in January of this year, as the next phase of that project, OCLC began adding WorldCat entity URIs for works to the 758 field in records. The rationale that they provided for that was, quote, enriching WorldCat MARC bibliographic records with the WorldCat entities URIs establishes a bridge between MARC data and link data, providing a starting point for connecting data across local systems and workflows and for using link data functionality in local discovery systems. Why does that all matter for us? So when you're working with OCLC records, do please keep the 758 fields as is and do not delete them from bibliographic records. Right now, 758 fields are not currently helpful in workflows, but it's going to be very useful for converting MARC to BibFrame once RSA has a database capable of that functionality. So not helpful now, but it'll be really helpful in the future. So right now, if you happen to see a 758 field in workflows on a record, that label, like that gray column that's all the way on the left, usually it has a helpful, plain English like way of identifying a field. Right now it says undefined, which is decidedly not helpful. However, RSA is working with CIRCE Dynex to modify that label to read resource identifier, so it's a little more user-friendly for people. So the 758 field, fortunately, does not display in the RSA CAT unless a user clicks on the catalog data button on the item details page. And I doubt many people are doing that. I think it's just probably catalogers that are looking at that information in the RSA CAT. Are there any questions on the 758 field?
Thank you to Peoria. I think it was Gray at Peoria noticed this field and wondered what it was. So if you do see a strange looking field on a record and you're not sure what it is and if you should keep it or not, please email help@rsanfp.org and we can look it up and advise you what to do. But they are adding more and more of these fields as they try to make records more interoperable with linked data. So there will probably be more fields that are added and look kind of strange. Okay, thank you. Let's move ahead. What is next?
Next is an update to OCLC Holdings Manager. This is Jennifer.
Okay, hello again. OCLC Holdings Manager, or OHM, the process used to batch update RSA libraries holdings each month, and OCLC is being updated. SWAN, another shared catalog system in Illinois, and the creator of OHM, has been testing it for their membership's OCLC holding updates, and it is working well. The underlying processing in OHM is much faster, which means our holding updates should be done faster. And RSA will continue with our May OHM update, even though the processing will be delayed a couple weeks as SWAN continues to work out the kinks with the new OHM.
We're hopeful. So right now we submit usually around the first of the month. James sends our workflows extract that shows what's been added. He sends that around the first of each month, and then it's typically later in the month that we get notification that the holdings have been updated and then also removed. So I'm hoping this might speed up the processing a little bit. We'll have to see. The reports piece, I get some reports with this processing. That piece hasn't been built yet. And OHM offered to not do our updates until the reporting piece was ready, but I told them let's continue doing updates. I don't want your holdings getting stale as we wait for the reports to be built out. So nothing will change on your end, but mostly I just wanted to let you know that this is being updated and there could be some delays with getting the holdings updated as they work out the new process. But in the end, it should ultimately run faster. Any questions about that? Okay, what is next?
Next is Erica to talk about upcoming RSA BibLoad workshops.
Okay, these are scheduled bi-monthly. So the next one is in June on the 27th. Registration closes the week before. The workshops are listed on the Cataloging at a Glance cheat sheet and on L2. And then, of course, they'll be announced on the RSA listserv closer to the dates. Remember to read the workshop requirements carefully before you register, because there are several OCLC videos to watch to make sure you know how to use the interface before the workshop. So just make sure you read through what's required so that you don't get an email from me a few days before the workshop and you're like, wait a minute, I have to do all these videos. We do put the video requirements on L2 and in the listserv post so that you know what you're getting into, for lack of a better phrase. Okay, any questions about BibLoad workshops? Okay, what is next?
Next is a proposal to start using Homosaurus.
We are excited to possibly start using this. So I'll go ahead and just kind of talk you through what Homosaurus is, show you what it would look like in workflows in the online catalog, next steps, and then we'll do a poll to see if we want to move this forward to the board for their approval. So Homosaurus is an international linked data vocabulary of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer or LGBTQ plus terms. These terms can be used as subject and genre headings on bibliographic records. This vocabulary was first created in 1997. It's maintained by the Digital Transgender Archive. And then Homosaurus terms are regularly updated by an editorial board to make sure that they stay relevant to the community. Homosaurus isn't intended to be used by itself, but it's to supplement Library of Congress subject and genre headings, as well as other controlled vocabularies. Why should we start using it? Well, there's a few reasons. Most importantly, it will increase access points on our records and improve discovery of materials for the LGBTQ plus community in workflows for staff and patrons in the RSA CAT. It will make these materials easier to find using terms that patrons use. Library of Congress subject headings, unfortunately, do not often reflect the terms that are used when patrons are searching for LGBTQ plus topics. I put a couple examples here. There's no Library of Congress subject heading for queer identity or pansexual people. Another example, there's Library of Congress subject headings, gender nonconformity and gender nonconforming people, but these aren't the preferred terms that people tend to use. They tend to use non-binary people. So the terms in LC are often lacking or potentially outdated. Homosaurus is much more specific than the Library of Congress subject headings, which is helpful when you're trying to assign subject and genre headings for specific LGBTQ plus topics or themes. We would join a wider library community by adopting Homosaurus. Other Illinois shared catalog systems, including the Cooperative Computer Services, CCS, are already using Homosaurus in their databases. It's a practical way for libraries to participate in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, making themselves more inviting to the LGBTQ plus community. If this proposal is accepted by this group and approved by the board, RSA cataloging staff would begin assigning Homosaurus headings as we catalog in OCLC. We would add these headings on the official WorldCat record. That way, other OCLC members can benefit from them when they load those records into their databases for their use. We would add these Homosaurus headings to OCLC records using the same care and caution that we use when we add any controlled vocabulary term to records. So only when we're absolutely certain, based on our review of the heading scope note, its purpose, in the homosaurus vocabulary, and then the content of the item. So we won't be assigning these willy-nilly. We will be making sure we're looking at the scope note and then the content of the item that we have in our hand to make sure that heading is appropriate. Potentially objectionable homosaurus terms, those tend to be more relevant to archives and special libraries than to public and school libraries. A complete list of the homosaurus terms is available here. I'm going to see if I can click on that so I can get the link for the chat.
Oh, I did
Um,
also put the link for homosaurus.org in the chat as well, Erica.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So here's the list for the link, the list of terms. It's quite an extensive list, alphabetically organized. So there's quite a bit there. But if you click on one of these, notice it gives you a scope note that tells you what it should be used for. So we would be looking at that. If we have an item where we think one of these terms may be applicable, we would be looking at the scope note to determine if it's appropriate or not. We would not delete any Library of Congress subject headings when we're adding homosaurus headings to records. Remember, homosaurus is supposed to supplement, it's not supposed to replace Library of Congress. So this would just be an additional layer of access points to help with discoverability. We wanted to mention too that even if we don't start adding homosaurus headings on our end, you're likely to see an increase of these headings on OCLC records as this library is adopted by more libraries in the wider community. And then those records are loaded into workflows. The homosaurus headings, in terms of what they look like on a record in workflows, they use the source code 2 homoit in the 650 and 655 fields on OCLC records. We already have records in our database with these headings on them that other OCLC member libraries have added, and then those records were loaded into workflows during copy cataloging. So this proposal is mostly for us to start adding them because they're already on records in our database. So I put some examples here from Never Silent, Act Up in My Life and Activism. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So notice it does have it in a 655 for genre terms, a 650 for subject. Notice there's the source code telling you the vocabulary that's being used for that heading. So there's homoit. These do show as unauthorized in workflows because there's no authority file to control them like there are for Library of Congress subject headings. Even though they're not controlled, they're still searchable both in workflows and the RSA cat. You might be thinking, what does this look like in the catalog? The headings are not visible on the search results screen or on the item detail screen unless somebody clicks the catalog data view. So the title we were looking at, Never Silent, Act Up in My Life and Activism. If you look at that title in the RSA cat and click the catalog data button, you can see those headings on the record. Even though the headings aren't visible, except on that catalog data view, they are still searchable in the online catalog. So notice if you search for gay biographies, it does return a couple results that have that heading in their records. Okay, so in terms of next steps, if the database committee supports RSA using homosaurus, the proposal will be presented to the RSA board for approval, likely in July. And if it's approved by the board, this proposal would be crafted into a document posted on the support site. The documentation index as well, it would be in there. and it would be announced on the listserv. Also, too, if this is approved, we encourage you to email the help desk if you have an LGBTQ plus item that you'd like us to take a look at to see if a homosaurus subject or genre heading might be added to its OCLC record. If this proposal is accepted and we start to offer that service, we would ask you to send the item in delivery because, again, remember, we need to have it in our hands so we can look at the content and determine the appropriate homosaurus heading. Also, too, if this is approved, we may eventually work with the vendor Marchive. They have a service where they can add homosaurus headings to existing records and then keep the terms updated. Because like any controlled vocabulary, sometimes the terms in it become obsolete and you need to freshen it up. So their service can help do that on a larger scale. What questions do you have about homosaurus?
So Ann Giffey wrote, just so I understand, the proposal is to update the OCLC record in WorldCat or the workflows record?
Yeah, good question. So if RSA cataloging staff are adding homosaurus to a record, it would be done on the official WorldCat level in OCLC and then loaded into workflows. Now, if Marchive is doing this, and I don't have a timeline for when we would do this, but if the vendor is doing this, they just do it to the records in your local system, not in OCLC. So we would need a way to protect those records if this is something we pursue with a vendor so that we're not paying to have them add these headings and then the records get re-imported and the headings are gone. So in the immediate future, if this is approved, it would be added on the OCLC official record in WorldCat. You're welcome. Okay, what other questions do you have? Mostly we're just trying to make materials more searchable since the Library of Congress headings aren't too good for this community. Okay, I thought what we would do is just do a poll. Oops, if I can make my screen stop jumping. Let me see if I can launch this. Okay, are you seeing the poll? Okay, and this is anonymous, so if you would like to answer this to let us know what you're thinking in terms of us doing this. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like it's staying steady. Okay, great. So we will move this forward. Thank you for your support of this. We will move this forward to the board this summer and see what they think. And then keep an eye on the listserv. And then we'll go from there. Okay. Okay, what's next on our agenda?
To Lisa to talk about ALA Core Creative Ideas and Technical Services Interest Group recorded webinar.
I know that's a mouthful, but we were just trying to make sure you knew what that agenda item was. Okay.
It is a mouthful, so I'm not saying it again. So with that recorded webinar, like our department, we attended this webinar, I think back in April, I believe it was. And we just kind of all thought that this specific webinar that they had might be beneficial for everybody. And like after I get done speaking here, I'll pop the link to this recording in the chat. I'll pull it up for everybody and share it. But with this webinar, there were 3 presentations included in it. And when you follow the link that I'll share, it'll take you to both the recording and the slides for this presentation. For the 3 presentations that they had, the applications of the QA catalog for analyzing library data, it's oddly kind of similar to the thing that Kendall showed everyone earlier from BCA, but it was open access software that kind of provides a visual analysis of MARC metadata. So one of the things that library that was presenting on that used it for was to show like completeness of records that they had in their collection. And they use this software to kind of think of like cool different cleanup projects for their collection. There was a Homosaurus usage in the OCLC database, an exploratory analysis webinar. So with that one, the UCLA library, they did kind of a study to see like how Homosaurus was used in records, and kind of like use that kind of analysis to see like how that can impact their usage of Homosaurus in their collection, which is kind of fascinating. But really like the big one that we think everybody here like might want to check out was the practicing self-care on the job and technical services. That's like really why we were sharing this. But with that presentation, basically it covered like ideas and methods to work smarter, not harder, we're going to say, like in technical services. Which is kind of important because there's an ever increasing demand for, exceptional, perfect output and less resources. Also, the idea of chasing perfection is just not really feasible, and it's very exhausting. So there were a lot of different ways and ideas that they had. Some might be applicable to what you do and what your library does. Some you might be like, well, this doesn't really apply. You could just ignore it. But they had a lot of really helpful ideas to try to make tech service jobs easier and make your life less stressful. I highly recommend checking it out. At the very least, go pull up the slides, see if there's anything on the slides that sounds interesting to you. And if it does, then go and watch the recording, so they could elaborate on it for you. But I do recommend checking it out. And like I said, I will go get that recording link for you. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. And the good thing is it's free too, so you don't have to pay to watch the recording. Sometimes with these things, there's a fee.
Oh yeah, I should have said that. Yeah, it's totally free.
Okay, let's see. Okay, what is next?
Thank you for that, Lisa. I intended to watch a bunch of stuff during that interest group week because I'm part of CORE now and they do a lot of good stuff. So I'm glad you brought this back around because it totally fell off my radar.
Yeah, so in the link too, like I think from here you should be able to access all the other they had a ton of webinars for that entire week. So there might be other things that you find of interest, that you could peruse.
So now we'll move on to let's celebrate. Start with some new and upgrading RSA libraries.
We've been talking about these for a while now, but think of it this way. This is maybe the last time, maybe the last time we will talk about these, because after July, we'll know if everybody's continuing in RSA or not. And remember, everybody will be a full member if they're continuing in RSA. Okay, so I'll let you, Jennifer, talk about ROVA.
Okay, so yeah, ROVA Community Unit School District number 208 Elementary School is using the workflows code from the high school that withdrew from RSA. Remember that. About half their collection is cataloged. Hooray. Their automation project is paused due to staffing. And this library has returned their IGA to remain in RSA. So that's great. We also have Mason Memorial Public Library. There's their workflows code. There's a lot of M's in that one. They're currently a union list library. They're making good progress on cataloging, and they're interested in becoming an automated RSA member and using workflows for circ and holds. And then we get to talk about service anniversaries. Erica has been here 15 years as of March. Congratulations, Erica.
Thank you.
If any of you have celebrated a service anniversary since our February 27th database meeting, please share in the chat.
Okay.
Lori's offering a round of applause. Here, I'll like put it by my microphone.
Thank
good.
you, Lori. Okay, let's see. Transition to cataloging chats. Okay, remember I mentioned earlier we'd talk about some details how these will work. They're very similar. We thought we would do a slide here just comparing them. So these cataloging chats, the first thing I'll tell you is that they might be called something else. We may come up with a catchier name for them. So they may be rebranded at some point, but for now they're called cataloging chats. They'll be 3 times a year, same months that we're used to, up to 2 hours long. Ideally, if we can make them shorter, that would be great. So we'll see based on the, the topics we have to tell you about. They'll be on Zoom. RSA will facilitate the meeting. There'll be agenda, recording, and slides, but there won't be notes taken for these cataloging chats. Primarily information sharing. Remember, the purpose of those email groups is discussion. If there's anything we need to talk about, it can be in those email groups, and then potentially we could schedule a meeting too, depending on the discussion in those groups. So very similar. We recognize the importance of continuing to share this information with you and making sure you have the opportunity to ask questions about it. Mostly since we're moving to the Illinois Intergovernmental Instrumentality, the III, July 1st, we just need to switch how we're doing things, and the committees are one thing that will dissolve and turn into the cataloging chats. Okay, any questions? We do have the next cataloging chat scheduled. I'll put the link into the chat. Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the last database committee meeting. A big round of applause because many of us have attended these meetings for many years. So great job everybody staying engaged with us. Okay. Have a great summer, and we'll see you in September at the first cataloging chat for a new era.
So Ann Giffey just wants to thank you for your service, Jennifer.
Happy to do it.
Thank you, Jennifer. We will see you in September. Have a good summer, everybody.